Today, our first conversation is with Deborah Quazzo, Managing Partner of GSV Ventures. Deborah, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
So let's get acquainted. Let's get you introduced to our audience. Tell us a bit about your background and also about GSV.
Absolutely. We're GSV stands for Global Silicon Valley. So we go at a global perspective. We focus on the $7 trillion global education and workforce skills marketplace. We do that through really two approaches. One is through a venture fund, GSV Ventures, where we invest in early stage, primarily early stage, although some later stage investments as well, in premier names in the education technology space. So companies like Coursera, ClassDojo, Course Hero, Remind, Photomath, Guild Education, et cetera, are in our portfolio between our two funds. And then we also host an event called the ASU GSV Summit when we're not in a COVID lockdown. It would have been physically would have occurred in the spring. We've been doing a series of virtual conversations in its place and are hoping that we can actually do it later in the year. But the ASU GSV Summit is a gathering of leadership across what we call the pre-K to gray learning and talent landscape. And it's usually about 5,500 people from all over the world sharing views and perspectives on the future of digital education. COVID's been a very interesting phenomenon for online learning. As probably everybody on this line knows, whether you have kids or you're doing learning yourself online, it has sort of rapidly accelerated the sector. And so it's been a pretty active period for us as in the lockdown.
Very interesting. You know, we have covered Course Hero for a long time, actually, and I know the CEO very well.
Mm-hmm.
And just recently, actually, maybe 5 days ago, I spoke with the CEO of Quizlet, and that's something that we are going to be doing a big story on. We have our Entrepreneur Journey series where all these entrepreneurs are featured in very long feature stories, so a case study style. So we do cover online education in a big way. We have a lot of entrepreneurs in online education that are in our community. So very interesting. It's a area that is of great interest to us. How big is the fund?
Our first fund was right at 100 million. Our second fund, we're targeting 200 million with hard cap 250. We've closed on half of that, roughly 100 million at this point.
And what size checks do you write?
We have a barbell approach to investing. So the majority of our investments come in through seed and Series A. So we'd be in a seed round, putting in anywhere from 250 to $1 million on average. In the A round, we can put, anywhere up to, probably 8-9 million for companies that we are really see breaking out. We're trying to look at. We have a view that disproportionate gains accrue to a leader in tech categories. We're seeing that in spades during the COVID epidemic. And so when we see companies breaking out and we want to put a shoulder to it, we want to build up a position of 10 to 15 million in a single company. So the perspective is they could return the fund. So that's how we think about it in aggregate. But we will typically come in seed and Series A, but can also do a select number of later stage investments.
Later stage. Mm-hmm. So our interest is primarily in actually seed and Series A. So let's focus on that discussion. What do you like to see by way of proof points before you're willing to write a check?
It's interesting because we're sector experts and we've been working in education technology for over 20, well over 20 years. I have a partner in Silicon Valley, Michael Moe, who really wrote sort of the original thesis for a Wall Street investment category around digital education. And in the mid-1990s, actually, it was early, but it was a sort of a dead-on thesis. It took the sector, it's taken until the last decade to get there. But because we're sector experts, I think that we have a pretty, we have pretty strong pattern recognition of what works and doesn't work. We're certainly going to make mistakes. We've made plenty of them. We'll make plenty more. But, as a result, we look at we have a framework we call the 5 Ps, which is, the people is the lead and foremost and factor in how we invest, and the ability of that team to kind of shoulder a great idea forward, and then product, potential, predictability, and then purpose, because we're not an impact fund, but we do believe that companies with purpose will have higher financial returns in the long run, and we do believe that every investment we make, has to be in companies and teams that are looking to make massive impacts. So you actually see across our portfolio, the companies that we're invested in so far are serving hundreds of millions of learners in aggregate. So what we're looking for is a breakout idea, white space within this pre-K to grade category that we've spent a whole lot of time in, or a unique approach to go to market with a strong product. So we're looking first and foremost at a great team paired with an investment idea, an investment thesis, or if it's really early, it could be the thesis stage, or if one that's actually gotten out there and got proof points from customers. So we're actually willing to go in quite early on a selective basis, depending on the strength of the team and the strength of the conceptual idea. We're willing to actually do that. Although then we're also obviously investing in the A round, at which point you're obviously going to have proof points.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about pattern recognition. So could you talk about some of the patterns that you've seen as success patterns, and also some of the patterns that you have identified as failure patterns in this sector?
Yeah, that's a good, it's a good way to think about it. So success we've seen, so I think Class Dojo is a great example in the K-12 market. We actually talked about Course Hero too. K-12, investing in the K-12 market, particularly for US-based companies, and by the way, most of our companies end up with very large international components. In fact, Class Dojo has more than 50% of users are outside the US, but not when they started. So what we loved about Class Dojo is it didn't approach go-to-market in the K-12 space in the traditional way. The traditional way is you hire tons of salespeople. It's very expensive, very high barriers to entry, very long sales processes into K-12 districts and schools, and very, very difficult to scale. Some people have done it, but it's a very rare bird that does that. So what we loved about Class Dojo was that it was a free offering into schools, still is, always will be, free offering to teachers in schools, administrators. They began monetizing last year. That monetization is and always was planned to be through selling into the parent population. So never changing the dynamic of a free distribution of the product into the schools, with teachers and schools, within the monetization up with parents who trust the brand, having used it for many years with the schools. So we think that's a very powerful strategy. We've seen that not only in our portfolio, but in a number of other companies that are seeing breakout performance in the K-12 space have found a go-to-market that is not the traditional go-to-market for that space.
Deborah, can I stop you there for a second? I have a few questions. So you're looking for free distribution to teachers and students and monetization through parents.
That's right.
How do teachers and students and parents find out about the product?
It was really viral adoption. So in the case of Class Dojo, it was seeded amongst teachers. They developed sort of champions within school buildings, and it's a product for K-8, not K-12, but it was very viral. I mean, they did some intentional seeding with teachers who became passionate about the product, and then basically virally had it adopted by their friends and partners and colleagues in the teaching profession. So it's a very very low CAC in that way. And today, they're well over 50 million teachers, parents, students using the product globally. And in COVID, what's happened in COVID is, as you would expect, actually, the penetration within schools has dramatically increased. So while most every K-8 school has a teacher using the product, with everyone going online now, the product basically gives a teacher a virtual platform to communicate with students and to communicate with parents and with administrators, for that matter. And so as a virtual platform became more important than it was already, the penetration during the COVID period has been astronomical. So so that's basically it has been a viral adoption. It was Sorry.
Can we talk a bit about seeding such a viral adoption? If you're trying to reach these early, in the entire history of technology, bringing technology products to market, every innovator, every entrepreneur has had to look for early adopters, right? So in this case, we're looking for early adopter teachers who are dynamic and who are experimental and who like to experiment with new products. Is there a place where you go to find these early adopter teachers?
They're all
do you see that across companies? Yeah?
Sure, there are all kinds of teacher communities. Teachers are very interact a lot. Teachers share lesson plans. There's a very active. There are a number of different. There's a company called Teachers Pay Teachers, which basically is a platform for teachers, literally paying each other for lesson plan exchange at very low ticket prices. So there are lots of places where teachers aggregate, and the company has developed over the steady march of teachers becoming larger and larger numbers of teachers becoming digital natives. When the company was founded, which would have been 10 years ago or so, that was really the beginning of the move, the generational move of teachers becoming digital natives. So that the company has really ridden that wave, as well as a number of other things. But yeah, teachers are very communicative. They're very viral. They're a whole series of aggregators, hundreds of them, probably thousands of them, really, that are places where teachers gather to exchange information, views, lesson plans, etc.
Yeah, that's actually we've done a few of these online education focused discussions, and that point comes across every time, is that there are online ways of accessing teachers and leveraging their viral ability to propagate information, and they are digital natives, and there are a lot of digital native teachers right now.
That's right, and so they're also very strong. They have very strong opinions, and in a good way, and so they're very reliable in terms of being able to vet solutions. So if your solution isn't good, you're probably not going to get you're going to probably get some pretty heavy negative feedback pretty quickly, because teachers are very rigorous in the way that they consider things.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. Now, you said you wanted to talk about Course Hero a bit?
Oh, sure. Happy to talk about Course Hero. Course Hero, as you well know, in the higher education space portion of the pre-K to gray landscape. And what Course Hero was really developed by Andrew Grauer, the founder, as you know, in his dorm room at Cornell, when he was trying to really create a platform for students, a technology platform for students to exchange notes. And that's grown into a very large business today. It's over half of college students in the U.S. and very large market positions outside of the U.S. particularly in English-speaking countries. He can, again, have over half in many countries. And that's important because the higher education market is not growing here in the U.S. In fact, it's declining along with our demographics, but it's growing very rapidly outside of the U.S. in emerging markets. But what Andrew figured out was he basically removed friction from, I mean, obviously, going back to the dark ages of when I was in college, note sharing amongst students has existed forever. But what Andrew did was move it online, allow students to sort of grade each other in terms of the quality of their delivery. It is now he developed a tutoring module off that, so strong academic students could then tutor other students as peer-to-peer. It's now a subscription-based product that offers all kinds of supplemental study supports for students to make them to raise, it's all about student success, and it's helping students where, as Andrew would say, where they get stuck. And how do you help a student get unstuck and move to a successful academic outcome? Again, they've also seen tremendous growth during the COVID crisis, and as students have all gone online. And the piece of the business too that he has added in more recent years is also bringing faculty onto the platform. So now he has, I think, over 40,000 faculty members from all over who are sharing their own materials and benefiting from the the elevation that this platform gives to things that they're doing. So he really just kind of he created this frictionless layer that's really hovers above the university. It doesn't get, I think, not unlike the K-12 system, selling into the higher education system in a traditional way, which is, sometimes you can sell to the university itself into a procurement area at the university, but often you actually have to sell professor by professor or department by department, which is, as you might imagine, a very laborious and very expensive sales investment. It's kind of what the traditional publishers had always done, and so what Andrew has done is, I mean, he has no salespeople. He has some when you could be on campus, he had campus champions in various places to support Course Hero on campus, but he basically created this frictionless layer that hovers above the university and allows students to tap in successfully. Also, a lot of students, it's a freemium model, so a lot of students use it get the benefit of it for free, and they can also get free benefits by contributing their own products. And so it's a mix of free and paid utilization on the platform, although conversion to paid is quite robust.
Yeah, it's an awesome company. I mean, my last conversation with Andrew was I think last fall or something like that. We had coffee in Cafe Boroni, and I think the company was already at 50 million, and
it's well above that.
Yeah.
It would have been more than that in the fall, but it's a very successful business. Andrew, it's also very capital efficient. I went in as an angel investor in the one institutional round that they did, and then when we raised our fund, I put the angel investment into the fund, and then we actually went in by buying shares from founders, and because there was no capital need. They have recently gone into unicorn status and raised capital for different purposes, but like M&A activity and to give employee liquidity. But in addition to everything else, he built a highly efficient business from a capital perspective, from a profitability.
Oh yeah, in fact, that's when I first met him. Is when he had still been bootstrapping the company, and he went very far bootstrapping. That company is a wonderful case study of bootstrap first, raise money later, which has been our mantra more or less in this platform.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right.
So, what are some other success criteria and failure criteria in your pattern matching? You talked extensively about teacher adoption and viral spread, and then monetization through parents as one of the pieces of success versus the failure criteria of trying to sell one by one to professors or teachers or school administrations. Are there any other such patterns in either direction that you have synthesized?
Yeah, I mean, I think those are, at least in the K-12 and higher ed market, those are really two of the biggest pitfalls. It is just very difficult to have the capital and the bandwidth to kind of roll out sales in a traditional sense in either of those markets. So I think those are pitfalls. Not to say we have an investment in a K-12 company and a second seed investment and second fund in a terrific company called IntelliSpark that's very early, but the two founders of Naviance, which is sort of the dominant college counseling software in high schools, and they're going to be selling into schools, selling a whole child measurement. The idea that there is there's a whole lot more to measure than grades and attendance, and I think schools are acutely aware of this, but there's no organized way to do it. We think it's a really important area, the idea of whole child. It's really resonated strongly with schools, and you've got two experienced entrepreneurs who've actually scaled a K-12 business in a traditional way, selling into schools. So it's not that we won't ever do that. So I think we'll see. We're very early, and COVID has obviously slowed anyone who has to sell directly into schools, the schools being closed. But so it's not to say it's not ever going to work, but I think it's a high hurdle. You have to have really the right group of folks. Trying to think about anything else. In the corporate market, I think you have to have that's been difficult because corporate learning historically was not highly prioritized. I think that dynamic has changed a lot as CEOs now understand, because we're going to go through the test right now. In a typical recession, some of the first cuts that would be made at headquarters would be in the corporate learning area, which was emblematic of the fact that CEOs didn't see it as a top 5 priority when the rubber hit the road. We're not seeing those kind of cuts this go around because CEOs have realized that even in a context of where they're maybe furloughing or laying people off, they still need to train and retrain. The term is skill and upskill and reskill. Their existing employees, the employees that are left, given sort of job obsolescence and other factors. So I think historically the enterprise learning market had been there had been risk there in recessionary risk there, and that and the general prioritization of the area by companies. But I think that is we've seen a sea change there that happened before COVID, but it's going to we're going to test out the thesis during COVID as we sort of wade through this COVID-driven recession. But that's the other thing I can think of off the top of my head. I think usually the failures are related to leadership.
Mm-hmm.
In my
so one thing that you did not mention, but your portfolio actually reflects it, is and the general trends also, is a significant presence of user-generated content in the product strategy of some of the companies that we discussed, Course Hero being a prime example, even Pluralsight, which we also covered from very early on, and they did up to, I think, $16 million in revenue before they raised any money. That was a bootstrap company out of Utah.
Yep.
Also did a very interesting spin on user-generated content. Quizlet is user-generated content-based unicorn. So it seems like there is a very interesting trend going on in the education world where user-generated content is doing really well.
Well, I think that's right. Certainly, I would put Pluralsight a little differently. I'd say that's more like Udemy and others, where expert-driven content, where you're not these companies are not. You're right. Coursera is another example. These companies are not building huge content teams to create their own content. They're leveraging either in the case of Coursera, you're leveraging the high brand and the high quality of well-known global universities, and leveraging that content into a whole host of different channels, whether it's consumer or enterprise or degree or actual degrees. In the case of Pluralsight, Udemy, and a number of others, leveraging experts in their field to basically become teachers. You're basically recruiting professional experts to become professional teachers on your platform, and then having rev shares with those professionals. And Linda was an original there, and
yes,
in doing that, she Linda and her husband Bruce bootstrapped that company also. I'm sure you followed for forever till Excel came in, and which was quite late. And so it's interesting. I think it's taking personal IP and monetizing it, right? I mean, you can, if you've got an ability today in a certain professional area that is in demand, the odds are you can hire yourself out to a learning platform it's real wide ranging. I think everything from the arts to vocational skills to serious coding and serious technology skills like you see on the Pluralsight platform. So it's really the elevation of superstar teachers.
Yeah, that's the conversation I actually had with Andrew in the context of Course Hero, is that he was trying to figure out a strategy for leveraging that trend of the celebrity teacher or the superstar teacher, as you called, basically leveraging expertise and and giving people a platform to teach on the Course Hero platform by riding on that trend. So I think that is a major trend as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, everyone's a teacher.
Yeah. So when you look at COVID-induced changes, what do you see?
Yeah, what we've seen is an acceleration. We expected the digital learning market to grow from 160 billion today to towards the $500 million mark in 2026, a little bit under that. But what we've seen is, we think we've basically taken a step change, so a 2-year compression in that growth cycle. So actually, we're now projecting that we'll hit the digital learning market will be $1 trillion in 2026, and we can, we look at analogs like the adoption of e-commerce in the commerce area and the penetration levels of how that moved, and drawing analogs there amongst other things. So what we've seen, and it's not going to be certainly there are companies that are suffering and are going to are badly impaired by what's happened. Obviously, particularly companies that depend on any kind of physical setting and have not been able to pivot into an online delivery. But I think in general, we just had a phone call this morning with an entrepreneur in India who's seeing incredible changes in the dynamics in the Indian ed tech market because of this. Funnily enough, in India, you still sell, you go to people's homes to sell, a consumer product like education, like a tutoring service, even if it's online. And obviously, you're not able to do that under COVID, and it's it's transformed the go-to-market, the sales strategies in India, because people are now going to be accustomed, habits are going to have changed, because it will be probably a long time before anyone is going to be going to anyone's house to sell something. So similarly here, certainly the going online, whether you look at K-12 or you look at higher ed, has not been perfect. In fact, I think you can read a whole lot about, its imperfections and dissatisfaction on the part of students, and questioning things like cost, and why would you pay the same amount for being online that you do to be there physically. And I think those are all important questions to be asked, with or without COVID. I think it's a great question. So I think it's going to, and it's also obviously elevated the fundamental issue of the digital divide, in that low-income students didn't have access to Wi-Fi, bandwidth, and devices, and in the way they have to. And I think that that's going to, and that was something that existed before COVID. COVID just re-elevated it. And low-income students should be able to learn at home. It's not remote learning; it's learning at home. And so, hopefully, out of this, we'll see some real moves by governments and and I think we're already seeing it. Collaboration to make sure we get equity of access to low-income families around this, so they can participate equally in digital education, which I think is very encouraging and very important. So I think there are going to be all kinds of fascinating ramifications from what's happened. And as I think we all know, it's it's not exactly over. So people are still, I think people are going to be held to a high level of accountability to improve the online delivery of education. You can't just stick some people on Zoom and hope that it works.
Right, and that's one of the observations that I have is that we've been covering online education from a journalistic point of view for a long time, 15 years, and the first shift was from this. You must have heard this expression, sage on stage to guide on side, where the teacher was asking people to go and look at YouTube videos or Khan Academy videos, and then coming and doing exercise in class. They were doing exercises, and the teacher was there to support and guide on the side. But I think we have taken another turn in this COVID crisis. If the teacher is on Zoom and the child, for the most part of the day, is learning at home on his or her own, and especially in households where there isn't a lot of education in the parents are not in a position to help them. And when it comes to high school, AP, calculus, and stuff like that, very few households have parents who can help with any of that. So those are technology, the software piece of that, the content piece of that, the workflow of teaching. All of this needs to change. I think there's a whole new paradigm coming into play now.
No, I think that's exactly right. I think what's interesting, I interviewed Alberto Carvalho on a virtual summit, and Alberto is a famous and wildly accomplished and spectacular superintendent of Miami-Dade. And Miami-Dade went online really easily, and they've had 91% attendance, which is mind-blowing when you hear about other districts. And to your point on parents, what they've done, they've created supports, but he actually views this as the opportunity to bring parents into the learning experience. That in a school setting, parents are really shut out, and you can't come to the building, you can't participate. And I loved how he thought about that, because even if you can't teach calculus, to be able to bring your parents into the room with your children and the teacher, and sort of see, have them actually participate more actively in the learning that's happening with their children in the public school systems, I thought was a very elegant observation. But yes, we do have to have, no, parents should not be, and I'm certainly not equipped anymore to teach calculus. So if our products better and better and better, I think the products are getting better and better and better. And so I also think this is going to bring a whole lot of new, fresh entrepreneurs into the space.
Yes, exactly. I think that would be fantastic.
Exactly. And so we need the next, we had this wonderful wave that Andrew and others were in. And so it'll be great to have a new wave of folks come in to kind of address the things you're talking about.
Terrific. Deborah, I know you have to go. I've kept you longer than you had signed up for, so apologies for that.
Thank you so much. It's great to talk to you. Appreciate it.
It was great talking to you. Bye-bye. Take care.